But where we are now, we are in the place where we can no longer afford to just follow the crowd this year. You have to lose that mentality for 2020. Because truth is, in 2019, most of the stuff you did because you was just going with the wind. Okay, it's going to be a little tight. You went with folk because that's what you thought you were supposed to do. Even when what they were doing wasn't right, you still did it anyway. And we did it because we had a sense of loyalty to people rather than being obedient to God. We were more intrigued. We were more concerned about making sure our friends liked us than making sure that God was pleased with us. And I've come to release to you that this year you cannot afford to do it the same way. People always say how you end. If you end strong, you're going to start strong. But the reality is some of us ended the year with God in anger toward us. And I want you to know, if you have not gotten it right, then you started the year with God in anger towards you. And here Paul, and I ain't going to be long, I got to start my clock. Let me start my clock. There we go. I ain't going to be long today. But here Paul is letting us know that, listen, you were all able to see based on what happened to those who came before you.
Well, come on.
And the sad truth, Tam, is that just because we all going to church together, don't mean we all going in the same direction.
All right now, say that.
Okay. Just because we all coming in here and we shouting and we're worshiping and we're praying and we're praising and we're singing Zion songs, don't mean that our eternal destination is the same. Because Paul says everybody did the same thing. Y'all all got the same spiritual meat. Y'all all drank the same spiritual drink. Y'all all came through the wilderness together. He says, but with some of them, God was not pleased. And so here's my question. In 2020, are you trying to be some of those where God was not pleased? Or are you going to be part of the group that heeds the warning? Because he says, if you read down, he talks about how it was 23,000 that God destroyed in the wilderness. And I want you to get to the point this year where you're not willing to die over foolishness. I mean, if I'm Mother DeBerry, if I'm just going to go ahead, if I'm just going to make up in my mind to do it my way, I ain't going to let you do it. I'm going to do it because I want to do it. And if it's just something that I want to do, then I'm going to stop coming to church, because it makes no sense to get all the same stuff and still end up in hell. Why keep coming here and you still leave back? And I've come to learn that the reason many believers are bound today, Sister Teresa, it ain't because the word ain't going forth. It's just because they got their own agenda when they hear the word.
All right, now say that.
Many of us only hear the word for what it says to the people we don't like. Talk, boy. Many of us only hear what God has to say when it's dealing with somebody we can't stand. When we want God to get somebody, we say, "Whoa, so-and-so sure missed that word. That was for them." No, you was the one that was in the place. So really the word was for you. It was a warning for you. It was God cutting on the light in your life and saying, I need you to look at yourself. Because if you don't learn to get the beam out of your own eye, you can't see clearly for your brother and your sister. Stop praying for vision for my life and start asking God to show you what's wrong with you. We've become gifted at being messy. Because I want you to know that God is such a perfect gentleman. He'll never violate your will to get you free. Because I learned some people like being in bondage. God help me. Some people like being messed up in the mind because it allows them to always play the victim. In 2020, you're not the victim. Matter of fact, can I tell you the truth? I'm on free. You might get mad at me.
That's all right. That's right.
But the mothers got my back. Most of y'all have been victimizers. Come on. And the frustrations that you have endured, you have self-inflicted. Come on, my God. Help us. No, Sister Ella, they didn't trick you. You knew what they was doing and you went willingly. Come on. Well, that's my sister. That's my mama. That's my brother. And your brother is wrong as two left shoes. And we consistently make excuses for people we know that's wrong. And then want to come in here and those that's trying to do the right thing, we want to give them hell and give everybody else a pass. God says in 2020 we ain't doing that. It's time to get your life together. What has God shown you about you this year? Get this. I got to hurry on. Before you can be a blessing to others and see a vision for their life, you must learn to see yourself so that you do not fall into the historical patterns of the past that call for God's anger and God's judgment. What does that mean? You can't keep doing the same old stuff and thinking it's going to work right now. 2019 was 2019. 2020 is 2020. And I've come to tell you, you cannot do this year what angered God last year and expect God not to say nothing. You can't expect him not to do nothing. So you never say, you got to change this year. And it's not a matter of you talking about who I need to change churches. No, because if you was a hellion here, you'll be a hellion there. You don't have to go to another church. You just got to get your mind right. Boy, I need another pastor. No, you don't. Because if you ain't listening to me, you ain't going to listen to that. What you need to do is learn how to see God's vision and purpose for your life and learn how to walk within it with all trepidation and with all integrity and sincerity, because it makes no sense for you to be coming here 30, 40, 20, 10, 5 years and you ain't changed yet. I'm sorry, this ain't the New Year's message you wanted. But the reality is, we have to stop coming in expecting God to be okay with our sin. We have to stop coming in expecting God to be okay digging deep with our wrongdoing and I was just going along to get along. As long as ain't nobody talking about me, then I'm okay and I'm skating by. I want you to know the light is on. And the reality is, ain't nobody getting back. And so I really can't speak for you, but I've made up in my mind that this year I ain't gonna start over again. No, I'm just gonna be right. I'm just gonna be obedient. I'm just going to walk how he tell me to. I'm just going to go where he tell me to. I'm going to say no when he tell me to say no. I'm saying yes when I need to say yes. And when I get to that crossroad where I really don't know what to do, I'm just going to fall on my knees and pray. And I'm going to stay there till I hear him respond to me. Where you are now, you're in that place, especially if it's a place of bitterness and frustration. You in that place because of what somebody before you did, not because you had the issue.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Let me give it to you like this. You mad because the person on your row mad.
Come on.
You really wasn't tripping in the first place. But because they was tripping long enough, it got you to tripping. You was cool till they rung your phone. You know, you was all big and bad. I don't want to hear that mess. They better not call me with that mess. I mean, if they call me, I'm going to tell them something about themselves. As soon as they call you, you like, yeah. He said what? They did what? They want to do what? Ain't nobody asked me. Well, you know, if I was you, I would tell them. And the same thing you would tell them to do is the same thing you not going to do. So Paul says to the Corinthians, listen, I don't want y'all to be ignorant. In other words, I don't want you to be ignorant to the tools and devices of those that came before you. I don't want you to be ignorant to the mess that happened before you. So let me tell you how to deal with this foolishness. Because the thing is that the Corinthians had supposed, Grandma or Elder Parks, that being partakers in the ordinances of the gospel, baptism and Holy Communion, they had supposed that because, Sister Joy, they were partakers in that, then that sealed their salvation for all eternity. That it exempted them from judgment. That it exempted them from ever being tried by God for their disobedience. And Paul says, listen, I don't want you to get caught up in religion, because religion does not save you. It's relationship, because relationship transforms you so that you understand the religion that you're in, so that when you embrace the ordinances of God, you do it God's way. But understand that he was telling them, the reason he was telling them this, Brother Barnett, is because too many people abuse God's grace.
Yes, help us. Come on, sir.
We feel that because we got his grace, then it gives us a green light, Uncle Johnny, to do whatever it is we want to do. And I've come to let you know that this year, God's grace cannot be for sale.
Come on, preacher.
If you're going to get his grace, you're going to have to work to get it, and then you got to work to keep it. You know, when I was growing up, before I married First Lady, you know, I had this grace at my grandma's house. I had this grace that every holiday, I got my own pan, macaroni and cheese. It was mine, my personal pan. And then, Mother D. Berry, I was so bold because I had this grace that I would eat out of the community pan and wouldn't touch my pan because my pan was going home. Now, when I got married, Lady Dale messed up my grace. Because Lady Dale knew how to make macaroni and cheese like my grandma. So now I didn't have to call grandma. I had what I needed at home. And when grandma caught wind of it, I started asking for my grace. She said, no, you got grace at home. What are you saying? What are you saying? What are you saying? What God has already given you, he's given it to you, but he's going to always make sure that there is a way for you to keep the grace that he gave you. And as long as I keep my marriage intact, I got my macaroni and cheese grace. What are you saying? You cannot afford to keep playing with the grace of God. I'm trying to help you today because I want us to not only be a shouting people, I want us to be a mature people. And maturity does not come overnight, but it's a process. Watch what Paul says. Watch what he says. Watch what he says. He says to them, in other words, I don't want you to think that just because you're good with ordinances, you're safe. But understand, there has to be a lifestyle change on an interpersonal level that has to take place. Yeah, Jesus, what are you saying? You remember that song, Search Me, Lord? And that one part that said, if you find anything that shouldn't be, take it out and straighten me. No, you got to get this. You got to get this. Because that means, God, I need you to deal with me on an interpersonal level in a way that don't nobody else see, in a way that don't nobody else understand, in a way that may be uncomfortable, in a way that may be frustrating, in a way that's going to stretch me, in a way that's going to break me, in a way that's going to push me to my knees, in a way that's going to cause me to have to cry in my prayer, in a way that's going to cause me to have to spend time and study, in a way that's going to cause me to have to get right with my neighbor, in a way that's going to cause me to have to stop cussing, in a way that's going to cause me to have to stop fussing, in a way that's going to cause me to have to stop lying. I ain't got to your road yet, just keep on sitting there. In a way that's going to cause me to have to stop drinking, have to stop sinning, have to stop sexing. He says you got to learn how to let God deal with you on a personal level. And see, we got too many surface Christians. We only want God to deal with the stuff that people can see because we want people to think we've made it. I want you to know now, I understand the position that I'm in, but I ain't there. Sister Aggie, Sister Ella, Peggy, I get y'all mixed up, but you know I'm talking to you. If you prime the pump, the tongue's gonna flow. If you get me mad enough, the tongue's gonna flow. But because I'm not trying to play with God's grace, I do an interpersonal interview to purposely get myself together so that when I feel that tongue rising, I know how to put him back into subjection, because I know if I allow myself to release what I want to release in my flesh, then it's going to derail everything that God has done in the spirit, and then it's going to knock me down a peg from the grace that I've got to now work extra hard just to get back to the level I just got knocked down from. So you got to learn how to deal with you. And see, too often we are concerned about what other people are doing. You ever been in class and you heard that, get that one student always want to tell the teacher what little Johnny doing. You all the way on this side of the room, little Johnny over there. But they always watching little Johnny. And because they've become so engulfed over little Johnny. Little Johnny, little do they know, has become their God. God is going to get tight for a minute. And I want you to know that whoever you're running after, whoever you're watching that much, and even when you see them not obeying the ordinances of God, and dealing with God's people the way they're supposed to deal with them, but yet you still just watching them, that person has become your God. And it is their grace you are after, and not after the grace of God. Okay, y'all looking at me funny. Y'all looking at me funny. Y'all looking at me funny. Because watch this. Paul told them that while they were in the wilderness, all of this stuff happened, and it displeased God. Why was God displeased with them? The reason God was displeased with them, and y'all read this chapter when you get home. The reason that God was displeased with them is because while God had already brought them out of the wilderness, he had already brought them across the Red Sea. He had gave them manna from heaven. He gave them a pillar of cloud by day, pillar of fire by night. While God had did all of this stuff for them, they still participated in idolatrous feast.
Yes, sir. That's it.
They experienced the move, but they still engaged in what they knew displeased him.
Come on, preacher.
What are you saying? I want you to stop being so comfortable with the move of God that you have no respect for the move of God. Stop walking and thinking that God just has to move because you showed up, and not take it as a privilege that because we've gathered, he decided that it would be good enough for us to come together, and he decided to let his presence rain down where we were. No, I didn't deserve him to show up, but I'm so glad that he did. And because he did, I ain't gonna take it for granted. I don't just expect God to move because I'm standing. I'm grateful God moved because I'm standing, because every time God moves, when I'm in the building, that lets me know his hand is still on my life. Just because you try to make it look godly don't mean that it is. Just because you say you doing it in the name of the Lord don't mean it's in the name of the Lord. And I want you to know that this year, you cannot afford to engage in all activity. You got to start checking folks' motives this year. They start calling you, start asking, why you call me? Why you want me to do that? Because I'm going to be honest with you. They don't really want you, they want your influence. See, you got to understand, some of y'all got some real good influence. And they already know that if I can twist you to my side, then everybody that follow you, whether they know whether they really know what's going on or not, because they trust you and you say something, then they're going to follow with a hook, line, and sinker. But you got to get to the point now where you start realizing how much influence you got, and you got to start asking Negroes, why you coming to me? Why you want me in the mess? Why you want me in the confusion? Because I've realized that if I get in it, then it's going to change the dynamic of the whole thing. And I want you to know that this year you can't afford to be the pawn and the patsy this year. The stuff that God has shown you this year does not involve the mess people pulling you in. 2020 is supposed to be a mess-free year for you. Jesus. I'm telling you what I hear in the spirit. The Lord told me that this is going to be a year of double, but he can't give you double if you can't get you right.
Yes, sir. Come on, preacher.
You have to be willing to slim down and shake that dead weight. I know you like them. I know you love them. But everybody can't go. Everybody can't go. We had a family meeting, and one of my uncles said to me, man, you didn't come to my New Year's Eve party. But before he could finish his sentence, he said, but then again, I didn't invite you. He said, because I already knew where you was going to be. Two things. One, I said, man, it's good you know that you didn't invite me, because you know I don't go nowhere I ain't invited. So if you want me, you got to call me. And I said, number two, you understood the standard for my life. And that even though we got a blood bond relationship, our relationship does not trump my standard. Y'all missing me. Y'all missing me. As much as I love you, our relationship don't trump my standard. As much as I'd love to kick it with you, man, because, you know, I really do like you, but it don't trump my standard. My standard is that I'm going to give God my all first, and then everybody else, you got to figure out what your place is, and then when I get down to your place, if I can, I'm going to do it, but I ain't going to do nothing that's going to cause me to lower my standard that I've set for my relationship with God. I'm so tired of people trying to get you and con you and bribe you into doing stuff. I'm saying, oh, man, come on, just this one time. They ain't gonna miss you this one time. Yes, they are gonna miss you just this one time, because anytime you not in place, you are causing a hole in the body of Christ, and that's another place where we're not protected because you not where you supposed to be. This year, be where you supposed to be. I love Samaritan. Prove it. Show up. The Lord placed me here. Prove it. Pay your tithe. Whew, I ain't no place like Samaritan. Prove it. Bring somebody with you. This year is going to be pivotal for you. But you got to learn how to deal with you. And so what Paul was doing is Paul was letting us know that all of these things we've already seen before. We've seen the miracles. We've seen the movie. We've seen God bring them out. He said, you saw God do all of this stuff. And even in the midst of all of that, even your fathers, they still did their own thing and displeased God. Paul is saying, listen, you got to take this as an example and as a warning. What was the warning? The warning was the 23,000 that died. The warning is, I don't want you to have to die in your pursuit because you don't really have a real pursuit. I want you to get it together. I want you to see them how they are. Watch what he says. Watch this. Watch this. Watch this. I got 3 minutes. I got to go. I got to go. I got to go. I got to go. Okay, Demaya, I'm coming. I'm coming. I'm coming. I'm coming. Watch this. Verse 7. One of the things he points out, it says, neither be idolaters, right? And so, watch this. The apostle considered the partaking of idolatrous feast as being real acts of idolatry. I'm going to give it to you again. The apostle considered that just partaking in it was just as significant of saying, this is where I'm casting my lots. So I want you to know that even if you tell us with your mouth you don't agree with it, but with your actions you still engage. Paul says that's really who you are. Jesus, okay. He's saying that you can't play both sides of the fence. That you've got to decide this year what side you're going to be on. And if you're going to be on the Lord's side, be on the Lord's side. Yeah. He said, if you're going to be an idolater, then be an idolater. But I want you to know that if you keep partaking in those idolatrous acts and hanging out with the idolaters, in other words, in case you keep doing the same old sinful stuff, hanging out with the same old sinful people, doing the same old sinful things, then really you just like the same old sinner. And I want you to know, just like that sinner is going to miss the grace of God, you too are in danger of missing the grace of God. If you are going to get God's vision for your life and see it clearly this year, you have to decide the behavioral path you're going to go down. How you going to act this year? How you going to behave? You going to be a preacher in word or a preacher in deed? You a deacon in word, deacon in deed? A member in word or a disciple in deed? Because we don't need no more members, we need disciples. Watch this. I'll give you this last thing. This year, you have to do a self-inventory and rid yourself of the things that will block the vision of God for your life. And for some, it may not be that you have to get rid of things and people, but it may be that you have to pick up some things and some people. Because some of you, you've laid down your call. Stuff God called you to, you got mad at somebody and decided you wasn't doing it. And God's vision for you, and what he's been showing you, and what he's been telling you, is get back in position. Get back in place. Because it's not about you. It's never been about you. I've told you once and I'll tell you again and I'm through. This is God's church. We are his people. It is my job to tell you what he said. It's your job to follow through with what he said. And you know that when I tell you what he said, you know if it's true because he done already showed you.
Come on.
I ain't telling you nothing that God has not already released to you. You done already seen it. Or else you wouldn't be talking about some, whoa, that was confirmation. It was confirmation, but you still ain't doing it. So what good is confirmation if you're going to act in disobedience? 2020, this year, we cannot afford to move in partial obedience. What's the vision for this year? I tell you. Evangelize. That's it. I ain't got to have no church meeting to tell you that. That's it. That's the goal for this year. Evangelize, win souls. That's all we focusing on. I won't talk about nothing else. I won't talk about no complaints unless you telling me what you complaining about and then bringing me your solution to fix what you complaining about. If you ain't gonna help fix it, keep it to yourself. I don't want to hear it. This year, we not walking on eggshells. We gonna do what the Lord placed us here to do. If we gonna be a lighthouse, let's be a lighthouse. How do we draw them? By going out into the world and compelling them. That's our job. That's it. I'm to give you the tools to go get them. You are to go get them, bring them back in, and then I'm supposed to give them some tools to go get somebody else.
Come on, preacher. That's it.
That's what we're supposed to do. And then we're to gather here together on Sunday mornings so that we can get strength from one another to keep going through this journey. That's it. But you can't reach them if you're full of hatred. Your heart not right. You always telling folk what you don't like and what you would do and how they need to do. No, not this year. Not this year. What did he show you for Ella? Then that's what Ella needs to be working on. Should I pray for you? Absolutely. But what my prayer for you should be is that God gives you what you need to do what he said. Not make him like me more. No, that ain't it. That ain't it. This is really going to be our year. I believe it. I believe it. I believe it. I believe it. I believe there are some things, Mother Ray, that's going to shift for us this year. Especially when we make up in our mind that we're going to do it God's way, period.
That it ain't about who I'm cool with, it's about pleasing God. And if you cool with me like you say you are, then you're going to push me to please God rather than conform to your opinion. Stop letting folk destroy your church. I don't care who they are. Stop letting folk push you to have an attitude you really ain't got. Walking around, I can't stand them. You don't even know why you don't like them. You ain't never sat down and had no conversation with them, but you just don't like them. Why? I don't know. So-and-so said they don't like them. That's their beef. And if you really had God in you, you tell them, go get it right. You do know the scripture says that judgment is going to start in the house of God first. What does that mean? God's going to deal with us first. And when you stand before God, the only person you got to give an account for is you. So why are you so concerned about everybody else when the only person God gonna ask you about is you? Get yourself together. Don't engage in those sinful acts this year. Y'all come on and bring the communion. Y'all come on, bring the communion. Don't engage in those sinful acts this year. Be better this year. Purpose to do right this year. With everything you can, purpose to do it God's way and be obedient this year. Because can I tell you something? According to Hebrews, I'm the only person that got the answer for all y'all. You don't have to answer for me. I got the answer for you, and you, and you, and you, and you, and you. And then after I answer for all y'all, then I got the answer for me. But watch the warning in Hebrews. Somebody get it for me. Get it for me. Hebrews 13:17. All y'all turn there. Because I'm closing. Hebrews 13:17. Who got it? Read.
It says, obey them that have rule over you and submit yourselves, for they watch for your soul, as they must give an account, that they may do it with joy and not with grief, for that is unprofitable for you.
That they may do it with joy, not grief. Y'all see that? Y'all know what that means? Let me tell you in case you don't. I'm supposed to have joy being your pastor. Because I've got to watch for your soul, and I can't watch for your soul if I'm stressed out, if I'm depressed, if I'm always crying over mistreatment. He didn't say it was going to mess me up. He said, if I don't have any joy, it's going to affect you. But watch what he says. He says, it ain't unprofitable for your physical body. He said, for your soul. Where does your soul go? It goes where? Your soul is what stands before God. So when God judges you, he's going to look at if I had joy pastoring you. And if there was no joy, He says, then it's going to be unprofitable for you. What are you saying? I'm trying to get you to understand that this year, you got to make sure that your life is together. Stop being concerned about other people. Let me have joy when I got to deal with you. Let me have some peace when I got to deal with you. So that you're blessed because of it. Jesus. Now watch this. When he says submit, submit does not mean to lord over. That's not what that means. It does not mean that I am to lord over you. That's not submission. That's dictatorship. God didn't call me to be no dictator. Submission, y'all come on for the communion, y'all come on. Submission means for me to present to you the same mission that God has given me, and we are to all get up under it and flow according to it. Whatever the vision of the house is, that's what you're supposed to submit to. Am I making sense? But you'll never be able to do it if you don't heed the warnings of Paul. Paul says, I don't want you to be like your forefathers. I don't want you to be like the people that came before you doing the same stuff they did that caused God's anger to be kindled toward them and then caused God to have to kill them. I don't want you to die. I want you to get yourself together so that you can receive and reap what God has shown you for you this year. I know every year we tell everybody, get excited for everybody else and, get excited for your neighbor. No, be excited for you this year. Because he's going to do something for you. But in order for you to get it, you got to be in total obedience. Amen? You receive that word?